Hey everyone, welcome to today's SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversation at Home. I'm your moderator, Scott Mantz, and before we get started, just want to alert you to our comments section below so you can see about our COVID-19 fund, find out how you can apply and qualify for assistance and relief during the pandemic. Okay, right now, the show is called Blind Spot, and it just started its fifth and final run on NBC TV, and there, from the very beginning, has been Audrey Esparza playing Tashas, and wow, welcome. So great to have you on this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to talk and to have somebody new to talk to. You know what I mean?
Well, what's it like when you hear the words fifth and final season?
There's a lot of pride. There's a little bit of sadness. There's a lot of joy. And just like mountains of nostalgia.
What was it like when you got back with, well, I mean, the location shooting for this series, especially wrapping up the fourth season, what was it like when you got back together with the cast, knowing that not only is this the final season, but we got to really, really go out with our biggest and best season yet?
Yeah, well, I think we were a seasoned enough cast to understand how fortunate we were to be on a network show that had a beginning, middle, and end. So we felt a lot of responsibility to our audience, and honestly, a lot of, I know we were all just so thankful to NBC and Warner Brothers for letting us finish the story. The fourth season ended in such an abrupt, literal explosion of an ending that not to come back just would have felt so sad for us. So we felt really fortunate and kind of had, similar to the characters, this feeling of just like, all right, guys, one last adventure. Let's get this thing done.
Now, in terms of what we've seen so far, we've seen 2 episodes so far this season. But in terms of filming, we've already seen one of the characters. I don't want to spoil anything here, but we've already seen one character sort of wrap up his arc. That's right. What has that been like for you to start to see, as you've been filming, characters wrap up their arcs and certain things wrap up?
Well, being a show that shoots in New York, Blind Spot was one of the few that completed their season in November. So we finished in November, and I kind of put it away for a couple months, and I've had to relive our endings, through social media, through hearing people slowly learn what the story was. But now I feel like I'm going in a circle and forgot what you asked me.
Oh no, just about about characters. Since you've
ending,
yeah.
You know what? I feel like we really did take it one day at a time while we were shooting it, and the repercussions and residual emotions that we would feel about losing somebody and not seeing them every day. It was really cathartic that our characters were dealing with that. Mm-hmm. Without spoiling too much, they've written such a beautiful love letter to the fans of the show, particularly in the finale, that everybody gets an ending. It's not always what we would expect as me as an audience member, removing myself from an actor on the show. There's some really surprising endings that I feel like in their own way, each character gets a really lovely send-off. And I don't feel too much pain for them as somebody who lived with them for so long, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And, when I was watching the show, I went back and I watched a few episodes from each season because I hadn't seen them since the episodes actually aired.
Sure.
And watching it so much closer together, you know what I noticed is you could see how you all become tighter. You bounce things off each other. The chemistry is more fully defined.
Sure.
When did you start to feel, looking back, when did you start to feel that you were all really getting each other, getting your own characters, and really hitting your stride?
Sure. Well, what I think was very special about this particular cast is we really liked each other from the beginning and spent probably way too much time together eating and drinking off set. So it almost felt like the writers caught up with our personal relationships in some way. So, you know, tiffs that were eventually resolved in storyline and look like some, I mean, although we're all great actors and all of that, look like, you know, a great resolve to that. I just feel like the writers were catching up with how much we really like each other in everyday life. So finally getting to drop the tension and some feelings of discomfort amongst the characters just made for a more fun day where we could bring some laughter that happens after cut to action, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, this is a really demanding show. It's,
Sure.
you know, you're doing 22 episodes a season and you're shooting all over the world, literally. So you need that to get through it, I'm sure.
Yeah, you gotta laugh or else you cry, you know?
Well, one thing about Tasha in particular is what an arc, what all the changes that she's gone through, not just with her personal life, but also especially with her career. You know, she's like bounced around, and you know, as a viewer, I feel like it was great because you started to feel your loyalty, meaning my loyalty to Tasha, tested. So what was it like around like season 3 when things really started to change for Tasha, when you started to get in that gray zone?
Well, my hope always was that you would believe us. You know, my hope always was, you know, the writers have such a huge task in keeping us engaged for 22 episodes year after year. You know, and sometimes, you know, you'll step back, or I will step back as an actor and think to myself, like, who's going to believe this? But I trust them, and they do. For me, I felt like out of all the characters to go rogue as Tasha did, I think they really smartly kind of set up from the beginning that Tasha always lived in the gray. You know, on our set, we often like would categorize each other in terms of Harry Potter houses. And we were always like, Tosh lives in Slytherin. So this works. So it didn't feel that crazy to me, honestly, because I think as the years have gone by, watching her, I think that she saw so many good people do good things and not get things done. She kind of came to a place of by any means necessary, which in the progression of her character arc rang true to me.
So in terms of progression, so this is the first like big weekly series with you've been playing the character now for 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, so what do you remember back to when the first season was about to start filming?
Yeah.
What were the initial challenges that you faced playing Tasha then, and how did those challenges get bigger and evolve with each passing season?
Sure. I mean, for me, initially, the physicality of being an agent and walking through the world that way. I have a dancer's background and have a little bit more of a lighter movement. And I remember in the pilot, they gave me a giant weapon. And I was like, if I can figure how to hold this thing and ground her, you know, and move that way, the rest of it will click and make more sense. Because honestly, in the pilot and at the beginning, my character Tasha and Rob Brown's character Reed were still in development. There wasn't a lot to go on in terms of dialogue, and we really used our imagination and our personal friendships as a way to create these people. So for me, the physical challenge of walking around like an agent, and there were two parts that were really helpful. It was really important to our creator to have FBI agents on set with us. So we had consultants. I was lucky enough to have a female consultant that really gave me the ins and outs and her experiences about oftentimes being the only woman in the room, which were really helpful. And also Sullivan Stapleton had a background in with handling guns, with doing military shows. And as they do in the FBI, they form these clusters, and he would kind of go, I go this way, you go this way. And we just started to move together. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that then translated to dialogue. And then, as you mentioned, this team that audiences now see.
You also have a very, very deep theater background, stage.
I miss it. I miss it every day.
But how did having like a theater background help you make the transition to doing such a demanding weekly TV series?
Well, you know, I have been asked this before. I think when I went to school, I was placed in the experimental theater ring. That's a very physical way to work that really spoke to me as somebody who danced for so long. But in terms of, it took me a second, but once I realized that finding the camera was like finding my light on stage, mm-hmm. It just kind of made sense. Also, I am very happy to be the least experienced person in the room and raise my hand and say, I have a question and I don't know how this works. And I was fortunate enough to be on an incredibly kind set that would walk me through, like, camera left, camera right, like, show me with your hand, you know, and I'll walk that way. Yeah. So I definitely had some learning curve, but I am forever and always not above asking a question. And I think most people will find that sets can be really beautiful, welcoming places that just want you to succeed. And that was my experience on the show. And I also just learned to say it quieter.
How did that experience translate to when you started to feel, you know, in the beginning, in the first season? So, you know, when you were sort of, you know, feeling your way around, getting the hang of, you know, a big set like this, big ensemble, you know, maybe being not as experienced as other people in the room. But what you have is Tasha. You have her character. You're getting to know the character better than anyone else. So when did you start to feel, I guess, for lack of a better word, a sense of ownership with Tasha?
That was exactly the word I was thinking. Yeah. I feel the most comfortable, regardless of whether it's film, television, or stage, when I'm very prepared. At the beginning, I don't want to say that I over-prepared, but I really worked my ass off at home because I didn't know any other way to be. Mm-hmm. You might ask, writers might say I felt ownership of Tasha too soon. But like I said, there wasn't that much to her. So, you know, in my heart and in my imagination, I just created this woman, and whatever or whoever she was to me, you know, oftentimes I've been on enough sets to hear an actor go like, oh, my character wouldn't do that, which is, you know, which can be true. And oftentimes, right, we have more ownership or whatever. But what I found most helpful to me in creating this woman for myself was to go, okay, if she's this way, and the writers, to move a 22 episode series along, are asking me to go left instead of my traditional right, it became a really exciting challenge to go, knowing what I know about her, what happens if she goes this way, and why, and how does that feel? And whether they use it in the edit or not, that I have that ownership while doing something that I don't know if my character would do, was really fun for me.
But that's also how the character grows and how you grow as an actor, because, you know, you are going off the growth not.
I am so sorry for New York City noise.
No, this is great. You know what's great?
I am home.
You're home. This is a conversation at home. Listen, I was doing one of these this morning and I had the friggin' trash trucks go by and it was like driving me nuts.
Sorry.
So, but listen, you know, because it is demanding and because making TV, especially weekly show, long hours. So,
sure. But a blessing. Like,
sure.
Being an employed actor, I mean, going to school, as friends, we used to talk to each other, and like top goal was to have a call time. So to have a call time every day for 5 years, even though there were some challenges, I can always take a breath and sit on that and go, remember when you had nothing, like you have a call time, you know?
Okay. So let's give me an idea of one of those challenges. Like, hey, I got the call time, I'm good. But man,
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, you mean, let me see if I understand. You mean like a challenge on set, something you wouldn't think of?
Exactly.
Sure. Okay. Here's something that's the other thing. Like, you go to school, you learn these lessons, and there are lessons that you learn on set. There's set dynamics that you really can't teach in a class. Like, having all your tools is super helpful, but I think you have to learn, or I had to learn, what was really helpful for me was whatever I had prepared, I could take it with me and bring it with me and protect it, right? Because there are circumstances on a set that you can't always control. Let's say, for example, you have a really emotional scene. You have a scene and you have an idea of how it's going to go. But suddenly we've lost daylight and suddenly you've been waiting for 3 hours, but they need to rush you to set, but you got to do it one time. So I think a challenge that I'm not saying I will always get this right, but a lesson that I often learned on set was flexibility. And my best days and my best work personally, that I can walk away feeling like, okay, I did my thing, was when I could take a breath and be flexible and know that my part as an actor, as much as it seems like a very important part to an audience, is the tiniest little cog on a giant machine that makes a show run, especially a show like this. The word machine oftentimes is used negatively, but I feel really proud to be a part of something that over time has learned to run really smoothly, and to be a part of the cog that's oiled makes me feel good, you know, instead of being the thing that stops it.
Listen, you have this show. I mean, you know, we're only 2 episodes into the 5th season, but you finished and you did it. You did it.
We, big we.
Big we. Yeah.
Yes, huge we.
So in terms of like, okay, so I was with Tasha for 5 years and I played her for 5 years. So in addition to the flexibility, learning how to be flexible, what are some of the other things that you're taking with you as an actor? How you are a much different and better actor now than you were 5 years ago because of all the experiences you've had?
Sure. Ashley Johnson, who plays Patterson, has become one of my best friends and one of the top 5 things I can say about the experience on this show is my friendship. We oftentimes have conversations or had conversations and we're like, can I say fuck?
Yeah.
They're like, what the fuck are we going to do when this is over? What's it going to look like? We're going to audition again. What's that going to be like? And we would always come around to going, we have hundreds and hundreds of hours on a set. I can hit my mark. I can get a light while being in my world more than most. And that's just experience. Just the experience of being there every day. And whether it's a dynamic scene or a really simple A to B to C scene, I'm leaving with so much experience that I think whatever project comes, you know, I can get her done quick. You know, I have a lot of, I think Ash and I will both say, like, we feel really proud that the crew is happy when we're at the end of the day because I'm prepared and everybody will go home.
The last, without spoiling what happens on the last day, on your last scene, what was it like? Just take us through the emotion of filming your last scene, of your last day on the set.
Yeah. Well, very smartly, and I'm really happy to our ADs. I'd say pretty much all of our last scene we got to spend together. So it felt like we got to give our characters one last great family meal. And not only our characters, our crew was all there. You know, BLINDSPOT has been really fortunate that our crew has pretty much been the same since we started shooting. So, I mean, this won't give too much away, but there's a beautiful meal at the end, and I felt like it was all the characters you know, plus our sound, plus lighting, plus our camera guys, and everybody came down for the last shot, and it felt special. And I'm really proud of what we've done, and it feels great that people are still watching this little family that we made out of nowhere, you know?
Well, listen, it is totally a bingeable show, but take it from me. I've been watching a bunch of episodes, rewatching a bunch of episodes on Hulu. So after having 5 years of having a call time, and or at least a call time on a regular routine basis,
Sure.
and now moving forward, when that routine, that call time might not be as in the same place as the same time as it was before, you know, what's that like for you now? Are you excited, you know, to move forward? And
I am so excited. Well, and also I have to say selfishly, any fear, like nobody's working right now. So it's not like I'm the only one not working. As weird as this time has been, it's been a really wonderful time to stop and reflect and think about what stories interest me and what kind of new faces and characters are out there to play. I feel incredibly excited and hopeful and maybe naively fearless. I've always been that way. I never had, and honestly, this might just be a terrible way to be that makes absolutely no sense, but it served me. I just always thought, why not me? I work hard. So I still think that. Yeah, and I'm really excited to read new things and to see maybe this time not where like the wind will blow me to, but to figure out where I want to stop, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And just one final question, Audrey, is as we are all in very, very different ways being affected and dealing with the situation and moving forward, I want to take you back to a time when it was maybe before BLINDSPOT, when you were feeling just like really just you were working really, really, really hard and trying to stay inspired, and motivated. How did you do that? And what kind of advice can you give SAG-AFTRA Foundation members right now?
Oh, sure. I always looked to, in my case, the women around me, especially the Latin women. I always rooted myself in theater, and what comes to mind to me is that there was this group of incredible women, mostly Latin women, who worked out of Labyrinth Theater, that took me under their wing. And if there was something to do or write or be a part of, I was invited and did that. So I try to help and mentor girls coming up. And I said, I always, I would recommend finding a group of people who you admire, a group of artists that you respect, and asking questions, because I think as a creative community in general, we are givers and do care about each other and want to tell everybody's story. So if there's somebody you admire, ask a question. If there's an opportunity to work in any capacity and learn something new, take it. I think that being a good actor is seeing beauty and artistry, not just in acting, but in the world around you. So if you're interested in cooking or music or watching documentaries about people in lives that are so different from yours, I think it's a great way to expand yourself.
Well, thank you for expanding to join us on our conversation today.
Thank you for having me.
Audrey, thank you. That was awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, please check out our comments section below to see how you can apply for relief and assistance. And the SAG-AFTRA Foundation COVID-19 Fund Blind Spot airs every Thursday, season 5 on NBC, and you can catch up, rewatch, and binge on Blind Spot on Hulu. Thank you so much for joining us for the SAG-AFTRA Foundation conversation.